And I have to say, things are not okay.
New Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole used Labor Day to pretend that the Conservative Party is now pro-union. Incredible. Now, if you know anything at all about the Conservative Party, about conservative ideology, about conservative media, I worked in AM radio, which is largely conservative. No single conservative AM radio host supports unions, supports workers. They're never on the side of workers' rights. Never. Yet now, all of a sudden, no, the Conservative Party, we are pro-worker. So I'm going to play this video for you. We're all going to laugh together, and then I'm going to go through some examples here showing you why the Conservative Party is not pro-worker. But first, here is Erin O'Toole.
I was raised in a General Motors family. My dad worked there for over 30 years. I represent a riding of auto workers, one that depends on manufacturing for its prosperity. And I have to say, things are not okay. Thousands of auto workers have been laid off. Hundreds of thousands of energy workers, forestry workers have lost their jobs. Too many people are living on the brink, living in quiet desperation. For them, there isn't a lot to celebrate this Labor Day. Part of the problem is big government, one that signs bad trade deals with the US and countries like China, or that kills entire industries by saying they're going to phase out the energy sector. But part of the problem is big business, corporate and financial power brokers who care more about their shareholders than their employees. They love trade deals with China that allow them to access cheap labor. Under my leadership, Conservatives will introduce a Canada First economic strategy, one that doesn't cater to elites and special interests, but fights for working Canadians. I believe that GDP growth alone is not the end-all be-all of politics. The goal of economic policy should be more than just wealth creation. It should be solidarity and the wellness of families, and includes higher wages. My name is Erin O'Toole. I grew up in Bowmanville, Ontario, and I'm here to fight for you and your families. And I want to wish you a happy end of summer and a happy Labor Day.
All right. Now, if you were taken in by this, I don't blame you, because the message is correct. Yes, workers have been negatively impacted. Yes, big business is benefiting. The only problem here is that the Conservative Party has been a major part of that. The Conservative Party the entire time has not been anti-big business, has not been pro-worker. They have been on the side of big business the entire time, pushing for these trade deals along with the Liberals. Now, before I get into some of the details here, look, this is good strategy. He absolutely has the ability here to fool enough blue-collar workers, blue-collar voters into thinking that he's on their side, when in reality, this is a message just completely stripped from the NDP and potentially the Greens if they have a strong pro-labor leader like Dimitri Lascaris, who I just recently interviewed. So hopefully Dimitri becomes the Green Party leader there. But this is a message just taken straight from them. This is not this is not what the Conservatives actually do. So just to point out some quick examples here before I get deeper. He talked about the trade deals. Oh, Liberals and China. Harper signs $2.5 billion in trade deals with China. So this was not brought up, of course, in that clip, that the Conservatives have been completely with this agenda, have been actively participating in it, not brought up at all. No, it's all the Liberals, which, by the way, yes, a big chunk of it is. Not arguing there. But the Conservatives have agreed with it the entire time, have worked with the Liberals to do this. Canadian auto industry threatened by free trade deal with Korea. This is a headline here from Unifor. Prime Minister Stephen Harper's announcement with South Korea. So again, he's not going to bring it up in that clip because he's selling the Conservative Party, but this is the reality of the Conservative Party. Joshua Mandrake here tweets out, "Don't believe the hype. Erin O'Toole voted for the anti-union bills C-377 and C-525 and can't be counted on to make changes that will actually help working people." And to give you a quick overview of those two anti-union bills, quote, "These two anti-labor bills, a direct attack on unions by the previous Conservative government, undermine the charter right to form a union for workers in federally regulated sectors and imposed unnecessary and onerous reporting burdens on all unions," Jerry Dias, the president of the union, said in a statement. So I have more on Jerry Dias coming up as well. But first, look, this is data from the U.S., but this applies across the board when it comes to unions and how it impacts hourly compensation. So you see here, big increase in unions in what I imagine is around the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s here peaking. And then you see here decrease during Reagan and the Thatcher era right here, 1980. And while there's been a decrease in unions during the 1980s, you saw still an increase in productivity, yet hourly compensation stagnant. So hourly compensation has essentially stayed the same since 1980. And that's because of the decrease in unions. And by the way, it's not just people that are in unions. When you have more unions in a sector, it has an impact on other companies as well that don't have unions, because it raises the bar in terms of what is acceptable for workers. So if a company knows that a worker can just leave that job and go to a place that's unionized and gets, better pay, benefits, then their only course of action in that workplace is to also increase the benefits and hourly compensation for workers there to attempt to prevent their workplace from unionizing. So you see an increase in hourly compensation even in non-unionized workplaces because of an increase in unionization. So it has a positive impact on workers across the board, even if you are not in a union. But more here. So this is from, I have several examples here. This is from the Public Service Alliance of Canada, Canada's largest public sector union, back in 2019, saying the Conservative Party isn't on your side. And they go through several examples here. I linked to all the stuff below the video. You can go through this yourself. I have too many examples to read through. But several examples of how the Conservative Party worked against labor rights. Here you have the Canadian Labour Congress. Their story, Canada's unions urge voters to reject the Conservative agenda of cuts. So again, this is from last year during the election. And they go through more examples here as well. This is from the Alberta Federation of Labour, saying here, anti-union policy is at the heart of the Conservative Party. And they give a great example here, saying in their policy declaration, the Conservative Party of Canada supports American-style right-to-work laws that drive down wages by starving unions of funds needed to stand up to anti-union low-wage agenda groups and governments. And right here, this is in their policy declaration. I looked at it. Again, all links below the video. Supports right-to-work legislation. This is strictly anti-union. And this is just last year. The Conservative Party is not going through some transformation. It is the same party, but the rhetoric is changing. You also saw Erin O'Toole try to reach out to the LGBTQ community. It's another attempt in their way to try and grow the party without actually doing anything of substance to help these various groups, be it workers, be it LGBTQ rights, whatever it is. It's all rhetoric. The Tyee here with their opinion piece, Harpers Conservatives, no friend to the union worker. And so many examples here in this piece. Again, it's the point forms. Go through it, read it all yourself. There are countless examples of how Harper worked against labor rights, labor groups. I just want to read this short piece here. Since 1982, the governments of Canada and the provinces have enacted 216 pieces of anti-union legislation. These draconian bills have been sponsored by all three major parties, including at times the NDP. So just being open and honest here about the history, all parties have been involved in this. That said, the Harper government has brought a special brand of fierce, malicious enthusiasm to its approach to labor relations. So what beyond standard issue right-wing anti-union ideology makes attacks on unions so appealing to the Tories? Here's one thought. If unions can be undermined and weakened, it means big profit increases for the business interests that support the ruling party. And by the way, this applies to both the Conservatives and the Liberals, which have been on the side of big business. Currently, even in their weakened state, Canadian unions deliver a significant 30% average wage advantage to their members compared to average wages paid to non-unionized workers. This translates into an average of $5.17 an hour advantage for unionized workers. For women, the advantage is $6.89 an hour. And for workers between 15 and 24, the advantage is $3.16 an hour. Now, I don't want to get too deep in this, but there's, I guess, a little drama between Erin O'Toole and Jerry Dias. So after Erin O'Toole said that he would be said that I will be Jerry Dias's worst nightmare. Actually, let me give you the here. So this is the headline here from Hamilton News. So Erin O'Toole here saying that he will be Jerry Dias's worst nightmare, told nearly 50 people who attended the meet and greet. So Jerry Dias, again, head of the largest private sector union in Canada. And Jerry Dias responded in unifor.org, saying that O'Toole and I have history. I should state that up front. During the long negotiations to rewrite the North American Free Trade Agreement, O'Toole was a member of the cabal of Conservative MPs, pushing the federal government to go along with whatever Trump wanted and sign a deal as fast as possible. O'Toole himself called the inclusion of gender, indigenous, and environmental issues during the NAFTA talks nothing more than virtue signaling, more on that in a second, that were somehow separate from economic concerns. What a dumb way to think about things. Lax laws on the environment, for instance, is one of the things that attracts corporations to such places as Mexico. No wonder I referred to him at the time as Erin O'Toole. So, this virtue signaling. Erin O'Toole claiming that it was virtue signaling to put something like, environmental issues in the new NAFTA. Virtue signaling is all O'Toole has done so far in an attempt to grow the Conservative Party. Again, talking about how they're now, we're open and inclusive, women's rights, gender equality, LGBTQ community, all cultures, all religions. The Conservative Party welcomes you all. That's complete virtue signaling because there is no actual substance to any of it. It is all just rhetoric. So again, this is what conservatives often do. They project what they themselves are actually doing. They say, oh, no, they're doing it. When in reality, this is what O'Toole is doing. Trying to grow the party by being pro-worker on the surface, by being pro-LGBTQ rights on the surface, pro-gender equality on the surface, all religions, all cultures on the surface, when in reality, there's no actual substance underlying any of it. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this because it's not, directly the Conservative Party of Canada, but we have a Conservative government in Ontario that O'Toole is from Ontario. He supports Doug Ford, supports the Conservative Party here. And the Conservative Party here has, Ontario freeze minimum wage, eliminate mandatory paid sick days. The Ford government has been strictly anti-labor the entire time. And again, O'Toole supports that. Ontario used emergency powers to contract out unionized hospital jobs. Experts say it will compromise care. Another story here. Employers are misusing Doug Ford's special pandemic powers to ignore collective agreements. Sudbury road workers say their bosses are using Doug Ford's emergency powers to give them later shifts. So several examples here again of Conservative parties, not even just the one of Canada, but of Ontario, being anti-worker. But that's O'Toole. He's going to continue to try and grow the Conservative Party this way. It may work if enough people don't understand the actual history of the Conservative Party and don't understand that there is no... What has O'Toole presented so far that is showing that he is pro-worker? Nothing. It's all just words. So you should be incredibly skeptical of what he is saying here and understand his only desire is to win. And once he's in... If there's an election, which we assume within the next year at some point, the next 12 months, there likely will be an election, he's going to try and use this line. And we have to scrutinize it and, hopefully the other parties... The one benefit here, potentially, is that other parties will see the need to actually present real pro-worker legislation because of the rhetoric from the Conservative Party. So liberals may run closer towards unions. The NDP may be stronger with worker rights than they already are. The Greens as well. So that's the one potential benefit here, is that they will try and undermine the clearly empty conservative rhetoric by showing some actual fight for labor. But we're going to have to wait and see.